Hey everyone, Dr. Baron Grutter here. In this video, I'm going to talk about printing of models, dental models, and various options. Now, I'm going to tell you at the outset that there are other options that I'm probably going to miss, different techniques that can also be done, and this is sort of an ever-evolving area of digital dentistry. But I'm going to try to talk about sort of the 5 or so different options that are more commonly used, and I'll tell you which ones are my preferences and kind of give you some indications of when I would choose which. So also there are some steps of the processes. I'll cover most of them. Some of them I'll let you know that I'll leave them out, and I'll let you know what steps I'm leaving out and kind of direct you to other videos that might cover these in a little more detail. That way I don't spend too much time on this video alone. So okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And I apologize if I have to pause the video in between once in a while. That I might have to step away for a moment here or there. I am at home on my weekend off, and so I have some other stuff to do as well. So do apologize if I have to take a break here and there. So anyway, this model that we're looking at right here is a typical model you might get from your scanner, whether it's a desktop scanner or an intraoral scanner or whatnot. And what I mean by that is you're going to have a lot of extraneous data. This is an optical scan. This was done with the CEREC OmniCam, and this is a scan you'll see quite a bit in cases. I just use this because that way my videos are fairly consistent with the same model. But anyway, most scanners you're going to get some extra data that you don't need, and so first thing we need to understand is we need to clean this up. We don't want all this. Now, some of your scanner software, such as CEREC, and then also the CareStream software, I think the 3Shapes software, anyway, they'll allow you to clean up the borders a little bit in their own native software, and that's fine. If you get used to that approach, then great. If not, I'm going to show you how to do it here as well. So I do have some videos on how to do that in Mesh Mixer. I'm not going to show you in Mesh Mixer. Well, okay, I will real quickly. I'm not going to go through it much, but if I hit the S button or hit select, I can literally just do this and hit delete. Okay. Now imagine I did that with everything, all the extra stuff that I don't want. So that's the general process for that. Again, I have other videos that go into much more detail. I'm not going to spend time on that right now in this video. So, couple the other. I'm going to show you how I did do it in Blue Sky Plan though. So here's Blue Sky Plan. Here is this model. Now, a recent update to the software, as long as we're in the module, surgical guide, any of these, in the advanced mode is what I'm using, you can bring in via this button right here, which is, let's hover over top of it, new STL file only. It's the new project from an STL file only. You can do all these edits and cuts, cleaning up and basing of models, and export for free. In the past, it was not free. Now, one thing that sometimes hangs people up, if you've just downloaded the software and don't have any exports, the software won't let you move forward. So you do need to have exports that you have purchased simply so the software understands that you can move forward. Will that change in future updates? I can't say one way or the other, but just know that you do need to have a couple of exports just on board at the time being of this recording. So anyway, so I've got this model right in here. I've called it the raw model, model 0. And to edit this, I can simply make sure that it is highlighted. And then right down here is the tool that I'm going to use, cut. Now you can click on it, which makes it gray, which means it's highlighted. That way you have a little cursor here. Or you can simply press and hold the shift button. You see how it changed the button without me actually clicking it. I can turn it on and off just by holding the shift button or let go of it. So real quick for me, I'm just kind of lining these up, the gingival zeniths. Bring my mouse over here, go a little bit below that, press the shift button, draw down and around. It's going to be like a lasso. And now I can take the flat part up to where I want it. Now I'm getting a little bit heavy-handed on that gingival margin below number 22, that lower left canine, but for this video I'm okay with it. I let go of the mouse and it's going to go ahead and delete everything that was inscribed within that lassoed area. I'm going to get a little warning in a moment. Ignore this. It's just telling you there's an opening somewhere, which there is. The whole bottom is open. So it doesn't matter. Just ignore that. Hopefully in future versions we can kind of actually get rid of that warning. So once again, I can, however I want to inscribe the areas I want to cut. That's what I'm doing here. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it in this video. I'll have other videos that kind of go over this process. But the whole purpose is eventually I get to the point where I am at this model right here. Okay, I've got a nice cleaned up model. Everything's nice and smooth around the borders for the most part. No little jagged areas. For instance, let me show you right here. This is that raw model I started to trim. I haven't trimmed this little area right here. In the one I actually did off screen before I started recording, I actually kind of cut a little bit so it's a little more smooth. We like smooth areas for printing. You don't want any areas that in particular will have a little bit of data that comes downward. Okay, what I mean is like towards the distal here. So we'll talk about why that is a little bit later when it comes to vertical printing. That's where it matters most. Okay, so once I have this open mesh, I can come over to the panel, model manipulation, make sure that it's the correct one that is selected up top here, and I can click on this button right here, close model. There's nothing complex about this, I mean, other than what the software is doing, but it's just one button and you're done. We're going to wait for the software to do its job. In a second you'll see kind of a camouflage look to it because there'll be two models overlaying each other. You see that? So this yellow one is the one that was just created. Okay, and its default name is model stone model. So if I turn off the visibility of that one I just cut, you can see this is the newly closed model. Okay, so this model is actually print ready right now. We've cleaned up the excess, we've closed the model. You can now bring this into you can export it and bring it into your print software and you are ready to go. Okay, you'll see that I did that earlier and it's just a different color. I can change the color to whatever color I want. But so it's the exact same thing, just closed prior. And I called it the Model 3 based. And we'll talk about that in Mesh Mixer, why I'm naming all these kind of different ways. Okay, so let's jump back into Mesh. Oh yeah, if you want to export now, you can just come up here to File, Export Data, find the one that you want. This is the one we just made. Have it only checked and click Export. Then you can export it to wherever you want on your computer and it's ready to print. It will not deduct one of your credits. But again, you have to have some credits on board, exports on board, for it to allow you to move forward. Okay, so let's minimize, or let's switch back over to Mesh Mixer. So now you can see in my objects browser right here. By the way, if you're having trouble finding this objects browser, it's under View, Hide Objects Browser, Show Objects Browser. Okay. So right now, if I want to, let me make sure I'm recording. I would hate, yep, we are recording. We have our raw file. Let's hide that and let's click on the open one. This is that same one I just trimmed in Blue Sky Plan and exported without basing it. Okay. Now, sometimes this next model you're going to see is called the closed model. Now, right now, if I click on Analysis and click on Inspector, it's going to, these little globes are going to show me any holes in the model. It's only showing one because the entire bottom is a hole. Now some people will just simply close this model by clicking on this. It takes a while. I'm not going to do it in front of you because it's going to take a while. The software will take almost 5 minutes just to process this because it's trying to, these uneven edges and uneven edges, it's trying to fill the gap and make a smooth surface. What it will end up looking like is this. Okay? Now, you'll have some little pink areas where essentially it's flipped inside out and whatnot. It's frustrating, but honestly, this is printable. It's ugly. It's like taking an impression of a patient, pouring it in stone, but never actually basing it. You have this awkward, and this one's actually pretty level. A lot of times they look much worse than this. You can imagine if it looked much worse, how hard it would be to make a stuck down on it or anything, because it would rock back and forth. So again, will this work? Yes, it will. And I'm going to show you how to print this if you have this. But again, I'm only going to show you because if you get stuck with this model, I'm going to show you how to deal with it. I do not encourage using this as your technique. I would much rather you use this technique, which is the one I exported. It's a closed-based model. We can print it directly on the print platform on this flat surface. You can set it on your lab bench. You can set it wherever you want, and it's flat. So this is a much better option. So right now we had the open mesh. Or I'm sorry, let's start from the very beginning. I'll probably do this a couple times. We have the raw mesh. we have the open mesh, but trimmed and cleaned. We have the closed mesh, not real, slightly a little bit annoying to work with, but it does work. Then we have the based mesh. Now this is, as I showed you in Blue Sky Plan, you've trimmed it, all you do is hit close and it's done. So in my opinion, this is the simplest, fastest way to move forward. Okay? Now, if you want to print upright, vertical, on its heels, by the way, I can't move this in all dimensions. It's limiting me where I can turn. If you're doing that, or you're not sure, well, you want to have more freedom of moving the model, press your space bar, click on this free. It allows you to move things freely however you want. So if I want to print this model like this, sort of upright, I can fit a lot more models on my print bed. Now I'm going to show you that in a minute in the actual print software, so just bear with me for a moment. But if I want to do that, I can come over here. I have this file. It's shared on Thingiverse. It's a free website for downloading STL models. I can take this model platform and I can drag it into Mesh Mixer, append, and now I can move this guy around, and I'm not going to get it perfect. I'm not even but I can move it wherever I want. I can rotate it, and now kind of position it where I want. Okay, so I won't bore you with that right now because I've already done it. This model right here is this model with a platform already positioned. I have scaled it, meaning this platform right here. If I click on the T button or edit transform, these little squares allow you to scale it. You can also enter numbers over here in the dimensions, and it'll scale as well, but I tend to just drag it over and I scale it, squish it, whatever I want to do. So anyway, this one right here, I shouldn't delete that, I'll just hide it. Okay, so this one right here, I've already moved it around. I've aligned it to where I want, so the heels are of this model that looked like this. Okay, it's the same model. I essentially just embed the heels within this this platform, so it's not sticking out, but there's a good contact area. Okay, so that is, now I can print it. It's got a nice flat surface. I can print multiple models. That'll work really well for you. Okay, now the alignment of this in Mesh Mixer, honestly, I don't think it's worth the trouble, because the next option I'm going to show you is actually much easier. Okay, but I will show you in a little bit how using a print platform would be useful, but that's not using it in Mesh Mixer. It's more using it in your actual printing software. Okay, so let's move forward. I'm going to hide this one. This again was the model we had that was based. Okay, it's flat. But let's say we want to print it vertical, but we don't want to go through the trouble of adding a platform and also the loss of resin. Okay, well, we can instead create flat heels. Okay, see these nice flat surfaces? Now that will lay right on the print bed, and it will print just like that big flat piece would have. Okay, now how did I do that? How did I accomplish that? Well, let's go back here. Let's click on this model, and all I'm going to do, by the way, sometimes it gets lost with this free movement. I don't like it, so I press, and now I unclick the free, and now I don't get lost as much in the movement. So now if I want to go ahead and make that plane, that flat plane on the distal end on the heels, what I like to do is I like to look right at the back end, line up the distals of the most posterior teeth, in this case the second molars. I'm not lining up the heels. They happen to be, they happen to line up all right as well. But what I'm really doing is I'm looking right here. Okay? I now come to the edit button over here. Click plane cut. And now I'm just going to click and drag a line. I'm holding the button right now. And when I let go, it orients this plane it's going to cut off. Now you notice that it's actually, the model's invisible. The heels are visible. That means we're going to be cutting the wrong part off. This big fat blue arrow right here, if I click on that, it inverts it. Look from the back side. These are both solid green or solid colors. If you watch some of my other videos, you'll notice that sometimes these are open. There are ways to fix that. If you have a problem with that, then watch one of my other videos that talk about model work in Mesh Mixer. Okay, I'm not going to go over that right now. But if I hit accept, now we've got these nice flat heels to the models. Okay, so I'm going to undo that because I already did that on this other model right here. Okay, so this one's all ready. Now the last option is going to be hollowing, the infamous hollowed models. Okay, now here's what the hollowed model looks like. It looks no different than what I just showed you, except if I flip it over, the inside is hollowed out. Now what does that do? It saves you a lot of resin. Well, I say a lot. We're talking about models that cost about $3 a piece to print, so we're talking about maybe 50 to 75 cents a model. If you're printing a ton of models, that's nice. If you're using a laser style printer like the Form 2, it also means faster printing because the laser prints 1 pixel at a time effectively. So because there's no pixels in this area, it will accelerate the printing process. Or if you're using an FDM printer or something like that that does point by point. An SLA DLP or an LCD printer, they print 1 layer at a time, so it really doesn't matter if there's a pixel in here or not because there's pixels on the perimeter of that layer. So that's getting more into printer mechanics and whatnot. But anyway, hollowed is better for laser printers, there's more benefit to it in time, and then also the saving in resin. Now it does create some complexity. I don't recommend printing them horizontal like this because technically the central groove areas may in fact, let's try something. I'm going to do a plane cut and I'm going to cut right through the middle of these 2 teeth. I'm going to flip this and right here, so imagine you were printing horizontal to print 1 layer, 1 layer, 1 layer. Okay? If you had really steep central grooves, this area may actually dip down. And it means there's nothing supporting it. So that little area is going to fail to print. Okay? I don't think this premolar, it's too sharp of an occlusal groove, but let's see if it, nah, it doesn't. But again, it's not a common problem, but it is something that always worries me. So that's why I don't necessarily recommend printing, hollowed out models horizontally. But I'll say that if you look at these teeth do not have deep grooves. She has occlusal fillings in these teeth, and these just don't have real sharp grooves. If they're really steep grooves, you could run into problems. So anyway, I don't advocate that. It would probably work on this one, but just keep that in mind. Anyway, but this is set up well for printing vertically, okay, on these heels. Okay, so I think that's it for Mesh Mixer. If we need to come back, I apologize if I get out of order, but I'm going to go back into the actual print software to kind of show you how to work with these models now. So I have got Rayware software open right now. There's also Preform for Formlabs, and there's a variety of other softwares out there. I just wanted to pick one to start with, okay? So here's our models, as you saw all of them named. Now let's go through one at a time. Let's go ahead and drag this open model in here, and this is the one that has that irregular base to it, okay? Oh, sorry, no, this is completely open. It has no base to it. My mistake. The one we want is the closed one, okay? So this is the one that is like you pouring it up, but never actually putting a base on your stone model. So you can't print this flat to the print platform because there is no flat surface. Let's go ahead and flip it backward a little bit just so we can see. There's nothing flat for it to lay flat on the platform. So in a case like this, you now need to print with supports. I don't like printing with supports. If you have watched my videos, you probably figured that out by now, particularly models, but it's not the end of the world. If you have this model, simply come over to your supports button and just do whatever settings you want to do. I don't care. Hit generate supports. Let the software do its calculations, and now you have a model that has supports and it will print. You'll have to knock all these supports off, and they'll knock off pretty easily, so it's not a big deal. And it is going to be the least amount of resin because you haven't added resin back here, but it also takes up a lot of space. It takes up quite a bit of excess resin. It's probably not any taller than a vertically printed model, but you can't print, a vertically printed model. I can fit about 8 to 10 models on here. With this, I can't, let's see. Let's duplicate this a few times, and let's see how many I can fit on here. Looks like I can fit, if I get creative, I can probably fit, we'll say 4 models, okay? I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing it, but you get the gist. I could definitely make 4 of them fit, but you have the same print time as vertical because it's so tall, okay? But you can only fit 4 models. If I print it horizontal, which I can't in this case, I could print a lot faster, still only 4, but I print a lot faster. So again, you'll see as I show you the other options, this is my least favorite option, but if someone gives you a model and this is what it looks like, this is how you print it, okay? So I'm going to hold on to one of these just in case we need to for comparison's sake. If I need to delete it, I will. Let's go to the next option. The next option is just a based model, okay? So this one, if you look underneath, what you're seeing down here is the first layer. The fact that you can see one solid layer for the entire model means that this is going to print. This is a nice little feature that Rayware has in their software. You know that it's got full adherence or contact, and it's going to print just fine. Let's move this just the slightest bit up, just tilt it, just so it's not quite flat, and you see it's just barely touching there. That's how you know that it's flat or not. If it somehow comes in out of alignment, just click on this little arrow right here, and now you can click anywhere on the flat surface, and it snaps right to the bottom. Okay, so again, like I said earlier, now let's duplicate this model. 1, 2, 3. I should have just arrowed up. Once again, I'm gonna guess we can probably print another 4 models on here without a whole lot of trouble. And yeah, it might be tight to fit 4, just by her arch dimension, but again, I could probably spend some more time and maybe finagle 4 on here. But this is all about printing speed at this point. You print horizontal if you need to print models really quickly, because the height is so short. Let's take a look. Since with this one in here, don't worry about the fact they're overlapping. Just so we never talked about time. If we have gray material set, which is what I usually do, the time determining factor is the tallest model. So based on this model right here, we've got 4 hours. Well, sorry, I always do 100 micron thickness. So we've got 2.5 hours of print time. Okay. I'm going to delete this, and now we've got 45-minute print time. So if it's 3 models, 4 models, whatever, the point is I can print them pretty quickly. Okay? So that's the advantage of horizontal. Very fast, with one button click, ready to go. And even if you can only fit 3 models, still you've got those 3 models in very short order. Okay? And I'll bet, I wonder, sorry for wasting time, but I can't help it. Yeah, this is how I should have oriented them. There you go. So 4 models, same 4 as we had last time. Takes up about the same amount of space because those platforms are so big when you do the supports and everything. But just in we'll say about a quarter of the time. Just over 1/4 of the time. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of these. And now let's bring this one in. Now this one is that same model where I just added that little platform. So if I click on this arrow right here, now you can see that solid, contact area. So let's look at the print. Let's turn this for a second here. And we've got 3 hours and 6 minutes. That's, that is 4 times the last one. However, if I come over to here, just going to roll the dice here, and I'm going to say I can get 7 of them. Or 7 more, I mean. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8. And actually, I'm thinking I can fit 2 more. Actually, so here's 10. And I'm not trying to waste too much of your time, but I just want to show you the efficiency that this allows. Alright, so we've got 12 models on here, and you can practically fit 2 more in there. But anyway, so now you've got 12 models, so we've got 3 times the models. It does take 4 times the amount of time, so is that best? No. Technically the horizontal is still going to be the fastest, but you do have the turnover. You have to remove the prints more frequently. But that's not the worst thing in the world. So it's just a matter of what where the middle ground is for you in this case. So anyway, but you see that that's the advantage here. Printing vertically, you can fit so many of them on here. So one little trick that I didn't mention, and I'm going to step back for a second here, is I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in that based one again. Sorry, accidentally opened up the Mesh Mixer. Okay, so let's take this model. Let's turn it vertical. Okay, let's make sure the heels, you can see one heel down here. Let's turn it a little bit till you've got both heels touching, or very close to. It does not have to be perfect. I'll show you why in a second. Now let's turn this. Now this platform you could have skipped. I told you putting them in the Mesh Mixer side of things can take a while. Now if you have all these models, do you want to open each model up in Mesh Mixer and then have to open up every model and then have to add the platforms individually? Now the platforms are now added in Blue Sky Plan software and the ortho software, so that's great if you're doing ortho. But we're talking just about models in general here. Well, if I just drag this in here, and I'm going to scale it down a bit because I don't need it quite so big. I just need it to be big enough for these heels to embed within. Okay. Sorry. Technically, it's still bigger than it needs to be in this dimension. I'm going to change this to 0.85. That's pretty darn good. And so now, let's just duplicate this model, and let's jump up to 9. Because we know we can fit that many. We've already done it once. I'm not going to go for all 12 because that's not really the purpose of this. Heck, I could have just done 3 or 4 just to prove a point. So here's all 10 models. Now I click on this, click duplicate. And so now I just need to bring these platforms up to each one as well. Okay, I'm not going to walk through the whole process of getting these just all perfect. I'm sure you get the point, but we're getting them, all the models, oriented on top of these platforms. Okay, So you can skip doing it in Mesh Mixer and just do it right in the print software. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this. I'm going to move forward. I don't want to spend, waste too much of your time on that. Hopefully it's not. I have other videos that go over that whole process of customizing your print platforms. In fact, I have, I wasn't planning to do this, but I'm going to show you another thing that I do have, and this is also shared online, is this guy right here. Just rotate it 90 degrees, and so here is a 9 platforms ready to go where you can just drag and drop your models right on those pieces. Okay. So again, I cover that in other videos online, and hold on, let me pause 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, I have more videos that cover that technique. I just wanted to throw that out there. All right, so now let's get rid of this, and let's move to the last option, which was, oh no, we have 2 more. So now this is the based vertical. So we had the print platform, which is nice, but if you actually have this, click the little arrow and you can skip the platform. Let's turn this 90 degrees. You can see the heels well adhered. Okay, so now you can print a lot of models. Okay, I mean, a lot of them will stack up. Now, I was not careful when I made my plane cut, and I want to point something out that I didn't notice until right now. You see that the model is actually leaning somewhat forward here. Okay, now that's an important note, because if this tooth right here is probably fine, but if this was more retroclined, it may actually be sticking down towards the platform because this model is tilted this way. Okay, you want to make your plane cut like this slightly. I did the exact opposite because I was working quickly, but you want to have it cut slightly like that so the model leans back a touch. Most models can print almost vertical because of the way our teeth, if our teeth aren't retroclined severely, we're okay. If you're missing a tooth, you have an edentulous space, quite often, say it's a premolar, well, the marginal ridge of this premolar may actually be hanging down below if you tend to have, in a situation like this, if you're missing this tooth, you'll have tissue loss right here. It'll be flat, and the marginal ridge might actually be sticking out down lower than the root surface of the tooth that's exposed, and that means that marginal ridge won't even print. So in a case like that, you really need to tip it like this. So again, I have that also covered in other videos, but just bear in mind, the reasons to tip teeth back, models back the most is for retroclined incisors or edentulous spaces. Okay? Or lastly, I mean, along the line of edentulous spaces, if you were missing this second molar, you may not think that is edentulous space, but if there's a lot of exposed distal surface on this molar, the same thing applies. So, it's the distal of the most terminal tooth or edentulous space, and then retroclined incisors. Again, 90% of the models I print, because most of them are ortho models, this isn't an issue because we're not usually missing teeth, but something to keep in mind. Okay, so I mentioned though, this model will pretend it's perfect, and now this is ready to go. Super simple. Simple plane cut, and it's ready to print. You can fit a ton on here, possibly even more than with the platforms on there. And now last but not least is the hollow model. It's going to look the same as the other one. The only difference is the volume of resin. Okay? It's not going to have that. Also, one thing I didn't mention is, since you don't have a platform here, the height, we're now, instead of 3 hours and 8 minutes, we're now at 2 hours and 56 minutes. That's simply because this isn't raised up on top of a platform. It's not quite as tall. So this distal plane cut is also an efficient way in that regard. Okay, I do want to point something out though that is important to know. When I made this hollowed out model, I made it so it's 2.5 millimeters thick everywhere. That's safe. Everything is going to be fine. What I want you to be aware of is this distance from here to here. On the Moonray printer, the first just over 1 millimeter, we'll say 1.5 millimeters, it gets over cured. It's so that it sticks really well to the print platform. That also means the dimensional accuracy isn't quite accurate. It'll be slightly larger than it is in real life, okay? If you're using the Form 2, that's approximately 3 millimeters, okay? So for the first 3 millimeters, you run the risk of this area being slightly inflated, okay? That may not matter, but I want you to know that, because if you're printing certain things where the data right next to the print platform is important, you want to know that it's not going to be dimensionally accurate. That's where raising it up, having it on supports, having something that gets it away from the print platform is going to be important. When I said raising it up, I mean stacking it on a print platform, put it on supports. You can't simply just drag this upward because it has to be adhered to the print platform. Okay, well, I think that does it. That covers all of them. I hope this video was helpful. I know it was long. I'm sorry for that. Hopefully you turned up your print speed, or your play speed. And I hope this video was helpful. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything I left out. All right. Well, hope to see you at our next video. And go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to know when new videos get uploaded. That's just the fastest way for me to communicate. You can also check me out on Facebook and Instagram, Baron Grutter DDS. And also on the website, my website catalogs all these videos as well, barongrutterDDS.com. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.